It's summertime and the heat is on Nigel Mansell to maintain his dwindling points lead in IndyCars, on Jim Mahoney, who crashed his sprint car at Winchester, and on the daring few who chose to tackle treacherous Pikes Peak. So cool off. Speed Week is next. Hi everyone, welcome to Speed Week. I'm Bob Jenkins. The busy July 4th holiday weekend saw several major sanctioning bodies in action, and we'll have some highlights shortly. One exception was the IndyCars. They had the weekend off, but are now in Cleveland, Ohio for tomorrow's Budweiser Grand Prix. Jan Beekes is there with a look at this event, which marks the halfway point of the season. Jan?
Well, Bob, things are really heating up here in Cleveland, and the forecast temperature for race day is 90 degrees with 90% humidity. But it's not just heating up outside, it's heating up on the racetrack as far as the competition is concerned. Nigel Mansell may have the points lead, but it's the Penske chassis and Emerson Fittipaldi in third place, only 16 points back. He's really making a run. Now, at these very hot forecast temperatures, will that help or will that hurt the Penske chassis?
Yeah, I think anytime you have a little more grip than the other guy, which we seem to have, when the weather conditions get worse, when it gets hotter, it just exacerbates any problem you've got. If you've got an imbalance in the car, the understeer gets worse or the back end gets worse, whatever happens. And in our car right now, we put a lot of time in the recent races into getting the balance just right. And I think it's going to play into our hands, both with the car and with the drivers.
Testing is very important to all IndyCar teams, and IndyCar, the organization itself, made a whole day available to all competitors at Laguna Seca right after the Portland round. Not everyone took advantage, but those who went thought it was a great way to test and also much safer.
I think it's one of the best things we've done this year in kart racing. Going to a test like at Laguna, you get all the teams turning up, or most of the teams turning up, and we're all running against each other on the same day, so you have a chance to look at what other teams are doing under similar conditions, and as far as the safety is concerned, it's second to none.
Now here's a look at qualifying for tomorrow's Budweiser Grand Prix. The pole sitter will receive $100,000 from Marlboro's Pole Award program if he can win the race. Bob?
The IMSA Camel GT Series is also in the upper Midwest, Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin to be exact. With another win at Watkins Glen 2 weeks ago, Toyota has all but wrapped up both the Drivers' and the Manufacturers' Championship for the year, and so has decided to sit this one out. The Absents will end their 14-race winning streak in the Camel GTP division. That means that the races we've seen for third and fourth this year will become the battle for the win tomorrow.
In many respects, I don't think it's fun for the fans because they haven't got the Toyotas here. But at the same time, I think a race is a race, and we're out there, and if we can win the race, then I'll be very happy. But don't let us think that it's going to be easy for us or easy for anybody. I think it makes it closer racing because we've got Porsches out there and the Intrepid and the Spice, and I think it's going to make it much closer because we're always all fairly close. It's just that the Toyotas are so much further ahead.
Yeah, well, it is good news. I think the Toyota not going to be here in that it can produce another winner in the championship, and that's good. It's you know, it's not good to have a series dominated just by one driver.
This 8th round of the GT Series will see a new car debut. It's the Jaguar XJ220C, the same car that won its class at Le Mans, and yes, the same that competes in the Fastmasters Championship. Its drivers will be Jay Cochran and Davy Jones.
Driving on a street, for the braking, the different conditions and everything, they're a really nice car. But when you take them and you put them on a racetrack, then you're taking them to the limit, and you know, it's two different styles of driving.
Qualifying for the Piggly Wiggly Grand Prix was held earlier today. Here are the results. This race can be seen here on ESPN a week from today, July 17th at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Steve Millen, injured in a crash at Watkins Glen, has been released from the hospital. He'll be recuperating at his home in California for 6 to 8 weeks. The NASCAR Winston Cup Series is visiting New Hampshire International Speedway in Loudon for the inaugural race at that 1-mile facility. Here's a look at the results of qualifying. By the way, Ken Schrader, whose car was found with an illegal carburetor at Daytona, had his punishment reduced by an appeals board. Instead of a 4-race suspension, Ken and car owner Joe Hendrick were fined $5,000 apiece.
Speed Week is brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Tires, when you're ready to get serious.
Coming up, Mark Gerke goes AWOL at Winchester. Cross says au revoir to the rest of the field in France. And a story of a heartwarming reunion in Fastmasters. This week's Backtracks takes us to Winchester Speedway for a big 4th of July celebration involving the USAC Midgets and Sprints. On Saturday Night Thunder last week, Mark Gerke found out how unforgiving the high banks can be. Entering turn number 3, Mark's throttle stuck, and as we watched from Ted Hines' in-car camera, we saw Gerke on the right go over the wall and into the trees surrounding the track. From this angle, you can see how Gerke ran over the right rear of Chuck Leary, which sent his car into the wall, then over it and into the trees. Mark was treated for facial cuts, but otherwise was not injured. In the second heat, number 21, Brian Gerster in yellow and Stevie Reeves were battling for second position. When Gerster got sideways, Reeves slammed on the brakes, resulting in Tony Stewart having no place to go except into the fence and onto his head. The Rushville, Indiana driver was shaken, but not injured. In the feature, Kenny Irwin, who had set fast time, took the lead from Mike Bliss on a restart and never looked back. He led the final 27 laps to take the victory. The next day, the USAC Loctite sprint cars invaded the high-banked half-mile oval. All was going well in heat number 2 until Jim Mahoney, replacing Bliss in the Steve Stapp Sprinter, suffered a broken right rear wheel. He hit the wall in nearly the same place Mark Gerke went out the night before and finally rolled to a rest on the inside of the front straightaway. Everything appeared to be under control, although Mahoney was obviously dazed. Then suddenly, the car erupted in an alcohol fire, the flames of which are nearly invisible. Several bystanders came to his rescue, led by fellow driver Bill Rose. Mahoney was hampered by ankle injuries and a head restraint, which was difficult to get undone. He was pulled to safety, taken to a nearby hospital, but was back at the track before the afternoon was over.
I just want to thank everybody for helping out over there at Billy Rose and stuff like that. I didn't really notice anything until I got to the hospital in Winchester. I didn't even know who the president was, so I got banged up a little bit, but we'll be all right.
It seems a little early to be talking points, but that's what was on everyone's mind as they came down for the green flag for the feature. Stevie Reeves, who finished third here the night before in a midget, jumped to the early lead. 17 laps later, Stevie was challenged by the white number 69, driven by Robbie Stanley, who started 6th after coming through the semi. After the defending USAC Sprint champion took the lead, he held it the rest of the way. Meanwhile, coming down for the checkered, Steve Butler and Reeves made contact as they were battling for third position. Jim Keeker passed for third, while Reeves finished 4th and Butler 5th. Steve escaped without injury. Reeves, however, was treated for a fractured finger.
Stevie and I were racing awful hard the last couple of laps to get past that lap car, and I don't know whether he pulled down to try to get underneath the lap car when I was alongside him, or whether I just stood on the gas and drifted up a little bit. It really didn't matter. It was the last lap, and I was going to hold her down and get past those two boys.
After checking out the damage to Reeves' car and after meeting with Butler, USAC decided some discipline was in order.
The way the point structure is, this is going to cost me 70 points. 70 points is equivalent to me finishing in the top 3 in 4 features, at least 3 features, and having Robbie Stanley DNF in 3 features.
Right now, there is only a 10-point separation between Stanley and Butler, but Stanley can add to that at Lawrenceburg tonight. The USAC Midgets are back in action tonight at Indianapolis Raceway Park, along with round 3 of the Fastmasters Championship. Both are part of Saturday Night Thunder, coming up immediately following Speed Week. Gary Lee is our man on site. Gary, can you ever remember a tighter points battle in the midgets?
Actually, Bob, yes, I have. Over the past couple of years, a tight points race has become commonplace here in the USAC Copenhagen-Skoll Midget Division. Now, once again, last weekend, Kenny Irwin reassumed the top spot by a couple of markers over defending champion Stevie Reeves. They'll be here this evening to give it their best shot. Mike Bliss, of course, is still third in the point standings. And don't forget, tonight is also round 3 of the Fastmasters. And here with more on that is an old Fastmaster himself, Dave Despain.
You got it, Garrett. Terrific field of drivers will run down in just a moment to pilot the Special Jaguars here this evening. But first, let me share with you a reunion that took place here today during afternoon practice. In the pantheon of American stock car racing, a special seat is reserved for those who win the Daytona 500. Marvin Panch did that in 1961. 2 years later, his career took an ugly turn. He was testing a Maserati sports car with a stock car motor when things went wrong.
Bruce Cunningham who had these birdcage Maserati, been running 24 hours over in Europe and all over, wanted to play with one of our Winston or Grand National engines in this car, give it more horsepower. So he's looking for a dummy to try it out and see how it worked, and I had a volunteer. I was young and eager, and the first thing, I took a couple laps, and the first time I stood on it down the backstretch, the sucker got airborne. It came up and flipped over and came on its top, and it slid into 3 and landed over by the tunnel there in Daytona upside down.
A half dozen heroic volunteers pulled Panch from that flaming car. It took 6 months for him to recover from his burns. It took 30 years for him to be reunited with one of those heroes, Steve Petrasic.
Great, how the heck are you?
You're wonderful. It's good to see you.
It's nice seeing you.
What are you showing up here for? You think you got to pull me out again?
We did that once.
Yeah, we know I do it again, yeah. I can remember when they, you know, that Maserati had the door open up and,
door?
Yeah, on top, and I couldn't kick the doors open. You guys came in and grabbed it, and I got the door open, and I started out, and it blew. You lifted it, and I started out, and a tank blew up on you.
Right.
And they dropped it across my back, and I can hear Steve's voice yet. He says, he's still kicking. Let's go get him.
Right.
Yeah. And,
you didn't hear what I said prior to that.
No.
I said, oh, damn, we lost him. Bow your heads and say a prayer, guys. And then I hollered, he's still kicking. Let's go.
Still kicking. Go get him. And then what Steve didn't tell me, I found out later, that he went temporarily blind for a while after that from the fire. And he never told anybody about it. He kept it a secret.
Just a short while. And,
I know, but
it worked out fine.
Steve Petrasic and his friends gave Marvin Panch the opportunity to live a long and full life. For his heroism, he received the Carnegie Award and $500.
Well, you know, another thing that worked out so beautifully, and I'm sorry that nobody thought of making a movie of this, but you remember...
I wouldn't want to take a retake.
No. But you agreed to give your ride to Tiny. You remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
And the Woods boys went along with it.
It was like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
You know, then he went out and won the race with him.
I'll tell you, it was really fun and heartwarming to be part of that reunion today. Marvin Panch came back and raced another half dozen years before retiring nearly 25 years ago. Tonight, he steps back in a car again for round 3 of Fast Masters, and look at the lineup of stars who will join him. From the stock car world, Lenny Pond and Herschel McGriff. IndyCar greats Lloyd Ruby, Parnelli Jones, and Roger Ward. The drag racer Eddie Hill and the road racer Bob Bondurant. It's going to be exciting.
SpeedWeek's travel arranged through Continental. One airline can make a difference. Business first, the comfort and service of international first class at a business class fare. That's the difference on Continental.
Since 1988, when Ari Vatanen set the record of 10 minutes and 47 seconds, no one has been able to climb Pikes Peak faster. But last weekend, within 22 minutes, the record was broken twice. Here's the story from Marty Reed.
Conditions had been perfect at Pikes Peak all week, and there was a sense felt by everyone on race day the overall record would fall. It would be Japan's Nobuhiro Tajima who would be the first to lay waste to Ari Vatanen's 5-year-old mark. He drove his twin-engine unlimited Suzuki up the 12.4-mile, 156-turn course in 10 minutes, 44.22 seconds, breaking Vatanen's record by exactly 3 seconds. But then it would be Paul Dallenbach's turn. The 26-year-old son of Wally Dallenbach was quietly running in the top 5 throughout the week. But on race day, Dallenbach let his car do all the talking. He crossed the finish line in 10 minutes, 43.63 seconds, leaving Tajima a former record holder after only 22 minutes.
I had no idea. I get up here, I was like, well, it was an okay run. Once I learn how to drive this thing and once I figure out where the road goes, I think we'll really kick some butt.
But the war on the mountain was not yet over. You see, at Pikes Peak, the qualifying order is reversed, so the fastest run last. Gary Lee Canoyer qualified second and was running close to Dallenbach's pace, but on the very last turn, Canoyer lost control, going over the edge. Remarkably, Canoyer, after remaining motionless in the car for several seconds, was assisted from the vehicle, where he was examined and released by hill climb doctors. That left Robbie Unser. 2 days earlier, he had broken Vatanen's qualifying record by over a second, and he was flying through the lower section of the course. At the halfway mark, he was 20 seconds under Dallenbach's record-setting pace. But in the treacherous W's, Unser's motor let go. For the first time in 6 attempts, Unser would not go home a winner.
God's been so good to me up to now. I mean, Al Jr. used to tell me, son, as lucky as you are on this place, the only thing left for you to do is die there. In other words, it's all or nothing.
It was also a record-setting day in every other division. Leonard Baschholz took top honors in 2 divisions, winning his 7th Stock Crown and 1st Super Truck title. In showroom stock truck, Bill Mears came out of retirement to run his first hill climb. He beat son Roger and grandson Roger Jr. John Norris won his 2nd consecutive showroom stock title, while Akira Kamiyama took the Pikes Peak Open Division crown back to Japan. For SpeedWeek, this is Marty Reed.
The Trans Am Tour is in Des Moines, Iowa this weekend for the Rouen Grand Prix. It marks the midpoint of the 14-race Trans Am season. As Bob Kelly reports, following last weekend's round at Sears Point, a clear favorite is starting to emerge from all the competitors.
Like fighters in the ring, they warmed up for round 6 of the '93 Trans Am Tour. An old injury kept 4-time defending Sears Point champ Darren Brassfield out of the car. This was about as close as he would get to the all-Camaro front row of teammates Jack Baldwin and Scott Sharp. Baldwin led the field into the first turn, but less than a lap later, Jack was back in the pits. A problem with a safety strap on his drive shaft put the pole sitter more than a lap and a half behind the field. The '92 Series champ would finish 15th. Back up front, Scott Sharp threatened to run away from the rest of the pack. The best action was behind Sharp's bumpers. Tommy Archer's Dodge and Greg Pickett's Camaro traded places and sometimes traded paint, fighting for the 2nd spot. Just when it looked like Scott would run away unchallenged, though, a late yellow flag bunched the field. But on the restart, Scott was as sharp as ever. The '91 Trans Am champion pulled away to win his 2nd race of the year with Tommy Archer 2nd, Greg Pickett 3rd, and Ron Fellows 4th. Baldwin's early problems left Sharp without a running mate for most of the day.
Well, a little bit, yeah. I was sort of expected 2 of us to whatever positions we were running to be dealing with the 3rd and 4th place car. The 2nd guy would deal with the 3rd and 4th place guy a little bit, and all of a sudden he was gone. I was like, oh, I guess I'm dealing with this on my own.
When did you know you had it?
When I came around the last corner and I saw the checkers, because until then, too much strange stuff has happened over the last year.
With the win today, Scott widens his lead in the Trans Am driver standings. Bobby Archer and Ron Fellows are now tied for 2nd after 6 of the 14-race Trans Am season. At Sears Point Raceway, a wet Bob Kelly reporting for SpeedWeek.
Bob, those victory lanes can be hazardous to your health. And now here's the way they'll line up for tomorrow's race in Des Moines, which will be the 5th straight week the series has been in action. We'll have live coverage beginning at 4:30 Eastern Time here on ESPN. The Formula One circus resumed its schedule last Sunday in France after a 2-week hiatus. Damon Hill captured his first career pole at Magny Cours and took the lead at the start in front of teammate and crowd favorite Alan Prost. Behind them were the Ligiers of Mark Blundell and Martin Brundle, who qualified well at their team's home track but were not factors in the race. One of the few accidents of the day involved Johnny Herbert, who lost control and slid into a sand trap. Then it was time for pit stops, and with all the congestion, Hill was delayed behind Michael Andretti, who almost made contact with one of the Sobers. Prost inherited the lead until he pitted, but without the pit traffic to deal with, he was able to come out just ahead of Hill. The two put on quite a battle, racing nose to tail until Prost eventually developed a comfortable lead. The most serious incident involved Riccardo Patrese, who ran his Benetton Ford right into the rear of Christian Fittipaldi, sending Patrese airborne. Neither was injured, but Patrese suffered damage to the front end. Michael Andretti ran his best race of the season after qualifying 16th, his worst start. He finished 6th, the final points-paying position. Prost held on to win the 6th French Grand Prix of his career and his 5th win of the season, to the delight of the French fans and Williams designer Patrick Head.
Very pleasing. The elusive 1-2 as we haven't really managed it since, I think, the British Grand Prix last year, so or somewhere like that, so it's quite pleasing. I think fairly clear that here we were asking Damon to support Alain's race. I think probably it might be slightly different at Silverstone.
Michael Schumacher in his Benetton made a late race pass to finish 3rd. Ayrton Senna was 4th, and Martin Brundle came in 5th. The Formula One drivers are back in action tomorrow. Here are the qualifying results from the Grand Prix of Great Britain. This is the only time in '93 when they run on consecutive weekends. And you can see live coverage beginning at 8:50 Eastern Time tomorrow morning right here on ESPN. Welcome back to Speed Week. If you're a wing sprint car fan, one place to be is Western Ohio. Here's a look at the results of what they call the Ohio Speed Week. Every year, the Club All-Star Circuit of Champions race every night for an entire week at Millstream Speedway in Findlay, Ohio. The World of Outlaws have also been busy. Their week began in the Rocky Mountain State. Here's Dave Wilson.
Thanks, Bob. Steve Kinzer came into Rocky Mountain Speedway in a strange position, trailing Dave Blaney in the battle for the championship. The night's wildest moment came during a heat race when Johnny Herrera made contact with Nick LaSalsa, sending Nick upside down. He was unhurt. In the main, Kinzer got out to an early lead and never looked back, winning for the 10th time this year and regaining the points lead.
Well, we're just going to try to win races, and if we keep winning races and finish up toward the front, you know, the championship to come. That's something that we've always done. We've never really thought much about the point things, but, you know, like I said, it's always sort of there in the back of your head. But we're out here running every race, and we'll just take the next race as it comes and try to win it.
Unfortunately for Steve, he did not win the next night in Rapid City, finishing third. Top honors went to Stevie Smith. He was followed by Andy Hildenberg. Fourth was Jeff Swindell. Fifth was Mark Kinzer. The massive rains that have plagued the Midwest hit Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and rained out Thursday night's race. But the Outlaws were able to race last night at Fargo. As we go to break, here's a look at how they finished. For Speed Week, I'm Dave Wilson.
Welcome back to Speed Week. The Great American Race completed its 4,200-mile cross-country trek today in Norfolk, Virginia. Neil Evans has all the action, including the winner of the $250,000 cash prize.
On the bank track at Indy, the Stutz and the Mercer couldn't help reliving the days of yore. While a rookie team attempting to pilot a 1941 Harley sidecar didn't know if they could make it out of the garage.
Well, we burned up a transmission. I think we did it yesterday, coming up Wolf Creek Pass. We've really gotten into this thing now. We want to finish.
But this competition is unlike any other. It's a joint venture where teams help each other along the way. And where the inspiration to stay strong, to keep going, often comes from welcoming parties along the route.
Everybody has got an uncle or had a grandpa or a dad that rode a Harley. There's a little lady today came up to me, and she must have been about 75 years old, and she come up and she looked at the bike, and she looked at me, and she said, my Bob had one just like that.
Alan and Mary Travis weathered the course in a 1910 Knox Raceabout, the oldest car in the competition. As fate would have it, the oldest proved the best. For Speed Week, I'm Neil Evans.
And that will do it for another edition of Speed Week. Next week, we'll be on at the same time, 7:30 Eastern, Saturday night.